Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to your online lecture series of EE222 Microprocessor Systems. I am Maimun Sajid and this is lecture number 25, your first lecture of week 9 after your midterm exams. I hope you are all fine and you have been keeping in touch with your studies in these vacations. In this lecture, we will be discussing your midterm exam solution and we will be discussing what were the common mistakes done by the students and how to prevent them in future. But before going on with the lecture, let me give you a tentative lecture plan that will be following for the rest of the semester. Your assessment mechanism has been changed, so your tentative assessment mechanism is presented here. As we are already done with your midterm examination, so the midterm examination assessment will remain the same. Similarly, your final examination will be hopefully conducted in the similar manner. So all we are left with are scheduled and surprise quizzes and assignments. Your assignments and quizzes for the CLO1 and CLO2 have already been completed, so there will be no change for that. The remaining quizzes related to CLO3, 4 and 5 will be shifted to assignments and the weightage of these quizzes will be shifted to assignments. So the weightage of CLO3 is almost partially shifted to the assignments, while the weightage of CLO4 and 5 are completely shifted towards the assignments. So your assignments will be used to assess CLO3, 4 and 5, and I'll try to make sure that your assignments effectively evaluate your knowledge in these particular domains. Your grading policy has also been revised. Your quizzes percentage has been reduced from 20% to 7%, while your assignments weightage has been increased from 5% to 18% in your final grading. Your midterm exam and final exam weightage will remain the same. The tentative lecture plan we will be following will comprise of 3 recorded video lectures of 30 to 50 minutes each. Question answer session with students will be organized via chat in MS Teams. Separate chat rooms have been created for each week to keep things organized. Questions needing further explanation in addition to the chatting will be addressed in the next video lecture. If required, bi-weekly online live interactive sessions can also be arranged, and those live sessions will be recorded and will be available for those who are unable to attend the session. At least one assignment will be given every week. That assignment will be graded and will be counted towards your final grade. Attendance will be recorded through MS Teams forms, and that assignment will comprise of one single question that is related to the particular lecture we have covered. Answering that question will mean that the student has completed the video. If any student is unable to answer the related question within the given time, he or she will be marked absent and I will assume that one has not watched the video lecture. You will be given 2 to 3 days after each lecture to answer that question, so that would be plenty of time. I have created a EE222 Microprocessor Systems classroom in Microsoft Teams. All your course related material is uploaded in your Microsoft Teams under the Files tab. I have created separate channels for each week. Your assignments will also be uploaded in your Microsoft Teams under the Assignment tab, and you will also submit and upload your assignment solutions under this tab. Your attendance will be taken through online forms as I explained earlier. There will be an optional feedback linked to every assignment that is meant for attendance, but giving that feedback is not mandatory. Yet I will highly appreciate if you can give your honest feedback to help us improve further the quality of the online lectures in future. So, for example, in week 9, I have already created attendance for lecture 25, 26 and 27, and same goes for all the rest of the weeks. Coming to your course contents, we have already completed register transfer and microoperation, basic computer organization and design, programming the basic computer, introduction to PIC microcontrollers, and introduction to assembly language programming. We are underway with input-output ports programming and arithmetic logic functions, and we are yet to cover the PIC18 internal peripherals programming using embedded C language and the interfacing of external peripheral devices using embedded C language. If we talk of the CLOs, we have already covered CLO1 and CLO2 before your midterm examination, while CLO3 is under process. In this lecture, we will be covering a combination of CLO1, 2 and 3, as we will be discussing your midterm exam solution that was based on all three of these CLOs. So let's start your lecture and let's discuss your midterm exam solution and the mistakes done by the students and how to prevent them in future.
Coming to the first question, in the first question, it was clearly stated that students were required to make a new instruction. It was written that the students should make an instruction INCM, and what that would do was it should increment a memory location by 1. Now the instruction set was given to the students in second question, but it was clearly mentioned that the students are not supposed to use that instruction set and they are required to make a new instruction keeping in view the hardware limitations that were mentioned in question 1. So what kind of hardware limitations do we have here? First, the basic task was to increment a memory location. What do we mean by incrementing a memory location? Incrementing a memory location means to increment the data at a certain memory location, and that location is pointed by the value, by the address in the address register. So the students were supposed to define the micro operations required to execute this instruction. Then again, we all know that memory itself has only two control pins. One is the read pin, second is the write pin. So memory can be only read or written. Memory cannot be incremented, decremented, cleared, complemented, or whatsoever. So to perform any logical or arithmetic operation on memory, we have to move the data from the specified memory location to somewhere where it can be incremented or decremented, or any other operation can be performed on that data. The first module that comes to our mind to perform this task is the ALU, the arithmetic logic unit. So what could have been done was to copy the data of memory into the ALU, increment it, and copy it back to the same memory location. Now that is very important, to copy it back to the same memory location. Otherwise, if we copy data from one location of memory and save the incremented result into another location, that wouldn't be an increment operation. In this case, we were only required to increment our data, so we don't have to go to the ALU. In ALU, yes, we can perform the increment operation, but ALU is supposed to be used for more complex arithmetic or logic operations like AND, or addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, shifting, etc. Simple increment can be done using many special function registers that are available in our basic computer. The hardware of our basic computer shows that the following registers have a dedicated increment line: the program counter, address register, data register, temporary register, and accumulator. All of these 5 registers have a dedicated increment input. What that means is we can increment any data placed in any of these registers by just sending a pulse at that specific increment input. So our task can be very simple here. We can copy our data from memory in any of these registers in one step, then increment that register in the second step, and then save that incremented data back to the same initial memory location, and that would be our task completed. So which register we should use, which is the best option here? We'll start by program counter and we'll consider whether it is the best option or whether it is any option to use program counter to increment the data on any memory location. For that, we'll have to recall what is the purpose of program counter. Program counter stores the address of instructions. We are making a new instruction, and when we'll write a program for the basic computer, this would be one of the instructions, one of the many instructions used in that program. So if we mess with the contents of program counter, we'll change the address of next instruction. Let me give you an example. The fetch and decode cycle remains the same. So at T0, we have our program counter copied to the address register. So a specific instruction is selected that is to be fetched and then decoded and then executed. At T1, that instruction is fetched from the memory location and is copied into the instruction register. And also note here that the program counter is incremented. Now program counter is incremented to point to the next instruction in the program. Right now we are not considering any next instruction, but to make any instruction for a complete instruction set of any computer or processor, we have to consider that after the completion of one instruction, the computer should be ready to automatically execute the next instruction. And this is what we do to point to the next instruction. Then at T2, the instruction is decoded. The address part of instruction register, that is 0 to 11 bits of instruction register, they are copied to the address register. Now this is the address of memory, and data is to be fetched from this address. What we want to do here is to increment this memory location, the location specified by this address register. Now that address was placed in the operand field of the instruction register. So if we write here, what our instruction will look like is INCM and an argument, and that argument would be the address of memory, the location of memory that we want to increment. So from T3, if we just ignore the indirect addressing mode for now, from T3 the execution will start. At T3, we want to copy the data of memory into any of these 5 registers. And we are talking about the program counter now. So let's copy the contents of memory into the program counter. Then at T4, we discussed that we want to increment that data, increment that special function register where we copied our data from the memory, and then we want to increment it. And then at T5, we want to save that data back to the memory. What happened here is the task has been performed, but now if we see here, the program counter was already incremented in the fetch cycle, and then it is incremented again here. So program counter is now PC plus 2 effectively. Next instruction will be skipped. So we don't want to skip the next instruction. And that's why we are not going to use the program counter to increment the data of memory register. Now coming to the second option, that is the address register. Same is the issue here also. It will not mess with the program control, but it will change the contents of the address register and will not have a return address. Let's see how it will affect our program execution. So T0, T1, T2 are all same. From T3, the execution will start, and at T3, what we want to do is now we'll use AR instead of PC to increment the data. So we'll copy our memory contents into the address register. Then at T4, AR will be incremented, and then at T5, the memory will be loaded back with the value of AR. That's the issue. When we wrote our instruction that was INCM and I'll suppose a value of 060 hexa, the memory location 060 was supposed to be incremented plus 1. The data at memory 060 was supposed to be incremented. Now what's happening here is 060 is in AR at this point before the timing cycle T3. Then the data from location 060 is copied into the address register. Previously AR was 060. Now AR is changed to the data placed at 060. Let's suppose the data at 060 was 100 hexa. So this makes our address register equal to 100 hexa now. Then so far so good. AR plus 1 makes the AR equal to 101 hexa. The data 100 at memory location 60 is now incremented to 101, and that is in address register currently. Now what we want is to copy this data back to memory location 060, and this 060 should be in AR, but the AR is now 101. So at this point what will happen is the contents of AR 101H will be copied to memory location 101. So this means that the memory location 101 will become 101H, and the memory location 060 will remain equal to 100H. This means that both the registers, program counter and address register, that are saving address of either instruction or the data should not be used for data manipulation at any cost, because in one case we'll mess with the program control skipping one instruction, and in the other case we'll lose our return address, where the address of memory that we wanted to increment in the first place. So after omitting both AR and PC, the options we are left with are the data register, temporary register, and accumulator. Which one should be used among them? Starting with accumulator, I'd like you to refer to the hardware block diagram that was provided to you in your midterm exam. In that diagram, if you can open it right now, we'll see that there is no direct connection of bus at the input side of accumulator. Data from bus cannot be copied directly into the accumulator. If I draw the portion of block diagram here, this is your common bus, this is your memory. Now memory is connected at both input and output side to the bus. This is your bus. This is your data register that is also connected at both input and output side to the bus. This data register is also connected to ALU through dedicated line, and that ALU is connected to the accumulator through a dedicated line at the input side, and the accumulator is connected to the bus directly at the output side. And then there is temporary register that is again connected at both input and output to the bus. So if we select accumulator here, the job can be done. The data from memory will be copied to the bus. Then from bus, it will travel to data register. Then from data register through a dedicated line through the ALU to the accumulator using the transfer operation. Then in accumulator, it can be incremented and then copied back to the bus, and then from bus it can be copied to the memory. So logically, yes, that can be done. We can copy our data to the accumulator from memory and increment the accumulator, and then copy that incremented data back to the memory register. So what we'll have to do in that case is, at T3, the data at memory will be copied to the, not to the accumulator, sorry, to the data register. Then at T4, the data register would be loaded into the accumulator, and then at T5, the accumulator will be incremented, and then at T6, memory will be loaded back with the incremented data that is now in the accumulator. So logically this is correct. It won't result in any mistakes or any issues with the instruction results or program result or data result. But if we note here, we can see that even if we have to go to the accumulator, we'll have to pass through the data register, and data register itself is an option here. It also has a dedicated increment input. So why don't we just use the data register, avoiding all this trouble of going first from memory to data register, then from data register to accumulator through the ALU, and then incrementing the accumulator. So this is correct, but this is not the most efficient way of doing it. I've not deducted any marks if someone has done this correctly, but I would suggest you to make your instruction most efficient for any type of computer, and for that purpose, data register and temporary register are our best options. Why? Because both of them have direct connections with memory at both input and output side. So the data can be copied from the memory at T3 from the memory into the data register or temporary register, Then at T4, data register or temporary register can be incremented TR plus 1 or DR plus 1, and then at T5 the data can be copied back to the same memory location as specified by the address register from the data register or the temporary register, whatever you have used. The mistakes done by the students in this question included: first, the students were clearly asked to make a new instruction, not to make a program to carry out that task of incrementing a memory register. So that task should have been performed using a single instruction, and an instruction is a set of micro operations, different timing cycles, as we see here. I'll repeat the sentence. An instruction is a set of micro operations. A program is a set of instructions. So when you are asked to perform a task and write a program for that, you will have to use the given instruction set, select the instructions that are feasible for your program, arrange them in a logical way, make a program using a set of instructions, and perform that task. But when you are asked to make an instruction, you are supposed to write a set of micro operations that would be used to carry out that task. So what students did was they wrote a program using a number of instructions to perform this task. That was incorrect. Second mistake done by the students was they selected micro operations, these micro operations, from the given set of instructions, and they wrote the control word here of that particular micro operation. Now, one micro operation can be repeated in many different instructions in a basic computer set or basic instruction set of a computer, but each instruction should have its own control word. This micro operation, if it is in one instruction, the opcode should remain the same. Here you can see that I'm changing the opcode. Operation code for a single instruction is always same. It should not change. If the opcode is changing, this means that the instruction is changing. Second mistake that the students did was to miss or repeat the timing cycles. For example, some students wrote T3, T2, T3 and T4. Now, first of all, they are not in sequence, and secondly, T3 is being repeated twice, and timing cycle 2 is coming after timing cycle 3. For a single instruction, the sequence counter is cleared at the last timing cycle. Before that, the sequence counter is just incrementing. So if you start from T3, it should be T4, T5 and T6. It cannot decrement to T2. It cannot go back to a previous value unless it is cleared. So the students did the same mistake. I think they chose the micro operations from the given set of instructions, and they did not remove that specific control word that was meant to be for that instruction, that would not be valid for any other instruction. And if you are choosing the micro operations from different instructions and do not remove these control words, then the end result would not be a single instruction. That would not be anything. That would not even be a set of instructions. So that was wrong at two levels. These were the two major mistakes. Then coming to the second question of your midterm exams, I'll read the statement. Using the given instruction set, the user is supposed to develop a code or a program to perform the task given. Now in this question, the students were required to choose the complete instructions, including all the micro operations of each instruction, and arrange them in the form of a program to perform the defined task. And the task was that you have an 8-bit input and you have a 16-bit number. So to get a 16-bit number on an 8-bit input, you have to divide that data into two parts, two 8-bit portions. And that data is received one by one in two 8-bit numbers. The MSB is received first, the LSB is received second. Now we know that we have to take input. We have to write the command INP to take the input from any input output port. Otherwise, the data available at the input output port will stay there but will not be copied into the accumulator or any other register of the basic computer. INP has no argument because INP always copies this data into the accumulator. So whenever no operand or argument is defined, the operand is supposed to be in the accumulator. Writing this command will copy the MSB into the accumulator. So now the accumulator has the MSB of data. It was stated that whenever an 8-bit data is copied into a 16-bit register, that is accumulator, that data is copied into the lower 8 bits of this register. So, for example, if the data was 0101 1010 and it was copied to the accumulator would be 0101 1010 and the most significant 8 bits of the accumulator would be 0. So, what we have here is the MSB of the data at LSB of accumulator. What we want to do is to shift this LSB to the MSB, the least significant byte of the accumulator to the most significant byte. We don't have a swap operation in the instruction set. So what we'll have to do is to shift this data 8 times. We have a command of CIL or CIR. Now again, this command does not have any argument. Whenever no argument is specified, the operand is supposed to be in the accumulator. So whenever we write this command, the data in the accumulator is shifted left or right once. Once means that after writing this command, the data will become 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. We'll have to keep shifting it 8 times to make the data 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Now, the accumulator has the MSB of the data as the MSB of accumulator, while the LSB is still 0 and we have not received the LSB yet also. So what we want to do is to save this data to some temporary location and then receive the second byte, the least significant byte. If we don't save it and we just receive the second byte, that was one mistake done by the students. If we write another command without saving, what would happen is the uppermost significant byte will again become 0 and the LSB will be copied to the LSB. So we'll lose the most significant byte. We'll have to save it first. Where we can save it temporarily, we'll have to consult our instruction set. And from the instruction set, we know that we can store the accumulator into the memory. So the STA command has one argument. That argument is the address of memory where we want to store the contents of accumulator. I'll use the same address 060 at which you were asked to finally store the 16-bit number, the complete 16-bit number. So I'll use the same address for temporary storage of data. You can use any other address. So after writing the INP CIL, I'll have to store that data at a temporary location and then I'll have to receive the second input. The second input will make the upper 8 bytes of accumulator to 0 and then the LSB would be copied to the least significant byte of accumulator. Then what we have is at memory location 60 we have MSB and zeros, and then in accumulator we have zeros and LSB. We want to combine them to make a single 16-bit number. How we can combine these numbers? All zeros and data, all zeros and data. We can simply OR them together or we can add them. Both operations would do. For instance, let's say our MSB was 1010, 1010, 0000, 0000 and our LSB was 1111, 0110. If we OR them or add them, we'll get 1010, 1010, 1111, 0110. So we'll write the command OR. Now this instruction also has one argument. OR what with what? Only one argument can be provided, so the second operand is automatically assumed to be in the accumulator. The first operand will come from memory. Which memory location? At which we stored our data temporarily. So OR 060 with accumulator. Both these datas will be ORed together and the final 16-bit result is now in accumulator. So all what's left is to save this accumulator back to the desired memory location, that was 060 hexa. Again, in this question, the students, instead of writing a program that was a set of instructions, they tried to write individual micro operations to perform this task. Polar opposite of what was asked in question 1. The second mistake here was, instead of doing this shift 8 times, the students did it once. So that would shift just 1 bit of data, not the 8 bits. The third mistake was not storing this data temporarily and taking the next input. So the MSB would be lost. Your last question was related to PIC microcontroller programming. Now here again, the students were required to develop an assembly language program for 18F4550 using the given instruction set. the instruction set is changed, the controller or the processor is changed, but you have to develop a code, write a program to perform the asked or the required task. The task in simple words was that there is an infrared sensor installed at the door of an auditorium. Whenever a person enters or crosses that infrared sensor, the sensor gives a low pulse, a single pulse. Now the students were required to keep counting these number of pulses and turn on a light when the count reaches 400. The only trick in this question was the count 400. We discussed in the class that an 8-bit microcontroller like Picatinny 4550 cannot count more than 255. So how can we count 400? Well, we can use nested loops. One register cannot count more than 400. The register can be cleared. Two registers can be used. There were many different options to approach this problem. Now I'll try to write the code to perform this task, and then we'll realize that it was not that difficult. I have the instruction set at hand, so let's start writing the code. First of all, what we need to do is to originate the program, org00 hexa. Then the next thing we want to do is to define the inputs and the outputs. How many bits are needed as an input and how many bits are needed as the output? One each. Why? Because the sensor is a single bit sensor that is connected to one pin of the controller, and the light is a single bulb that is connected to another pin of the controller. So to make one pin as an input, I'll set the bit of tri-state buffer of port A0, and then I'll clear the tri-state buffer of port A1. So now RA0 is input and RA1 is output. The next step is to keep checking the input, whether someone crossed the sensor and the sensor gave a pulse of 0, or it is in the normal state and no one crossed. So I'll keep calling our input RA0 bit test file and skip if clear, because we want to detect the state 0. We don't want to detect the normal state, that is 1. And which bit I have to test? RA0. Keep checking and skip the next instruction if it is 0. Otherwise, what we want to do? We don't want to skip the next instruction and we want to check again. So the next instruction should be go to again. This instruction will test RA0. If it is 0, then it will skip this instruction. Otherwise, it will not skip this instruction. It will execute and will check again. It will keep checking until and unless RA0 becomes 0. Now, after skipping this instruction, what I want to do? I want to increment the count. The count started with 0, but whatever the value was in the count, I'll want to add 1 to it. So I'll just increment a file and skip if 0. Which file? Let's say location number 00. Increment the data at location 0 and skip if it is 0. Why didn't I just increment it, but I incremented and checked if it is 0. So let's assume the data was initially 0. I incremented it, the data was 1. So 1 was not equal to 0. So it would not skip the next instruction. It would just go back. The count is not 0 and the count is still not 400. So if the count is not 400, what I want to do, I want to keep checking. So I'll just go to keep checking the state of the button. I'll keep incrementing this location 0 and I'll just keep checking if it is not 0. If it is not 0, I'll keep jumping back to the test routine in where I am polling my input. Now, let's assume it incremented it to a number of 255 and then another person crosses. So now our instruction is here and the location 00 has the value of 255. If I again increment a register with a value of 255, it will overflow and it will overflow to become 0. And in that case, I'll have 256 counts. So it will skip the next instruction and it will come to this point. Now what I want to do at this point is very important. 256 counts are completed up till this point. Remaining number of count is 144. What I can do is copy this number into the W register and repeat the same loop. Let me do it. Let me copy a literal value to a working register D144. Now the W register has the desired remaining count. Then what we want to do is to keep checking whether some person enters the room or not. So we'll copy this same loop here again to bit test file and skip if clear RA0, go to again to, and if it is clear, if a person crosses, then start the remaining count 144. So increment file register 00. Now that file register had the value of 00. If you increment it, it will become 01. Compare that file with working register and skip if equal. Compare which file? 00. Location 00H is now compared with working register. Data at location 00 hexa is compared to the data in W register, and W register has 144 stored in it. So after incrementing the location 0, it will compare it with 144 and skip the next instruction if it is equal to 144. And if it is equal to 144, this means that our total count has now reached 400. So if it is not equal, go to again to keep checking. But if it is equal, turn on the light. BSF RA1. Turn on light and end the program. The major mistake in this particular question was unable to make the logic to count 400. Many students copied the decimal value of 400 into a single register. A single register is only 8-bit wide, so 400 cannot be copied to an 8-bit register. The maximum value that can be copied into an 8-bit register is 255. So you had to make 2 loops to address this issue. The major mistake. The second mistake was some students just used 255 and completely ignored the value of 400. The third mistake was some students did not keep polling this switch but rather made a delay. What some students did was, without checking whether there was a pulse on the input, they made a counter of 256 or 400 and they kept incrementing it without considering whether the person was passing through the door or not. So that was wrong. Again, this was a fairly simple question, a bit tricky but not that difficult. Again, if anyone has any questions, queries, or if anything is not clear, you can send me an email or comment at the end of this video, and I'll be more than happy to address your queries in the beginning of my next lecture. And stay safe. Thank you. We'll see you in the next lecture, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.